Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily podcast for all things Duke Blue Devils news. Just like every day, we thank you so much for tuning into the show today to get your latest on the Duke Blue Devils. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Happy to chat with you guys today, as well as every single day, about the Blue Devils. We thank you so much for tuning into the show today. Make sure to check us out every single day at si.com/college/Duke and wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple, wherever that may be, even on YouTube. Go check us out every single day to get your latest on the Duke Blue Devils. So as you guys know, we've been spending a lot of time on Duke basketball as of late, a ton going on with John Shire and the Duke basketball program regarding a hefty transfer portal haul headlined by John Blackwell and Drew Sharnowski. And then a lot of discussion just kind of into John Blackwell's future. It seemed very unlikely that he would ever stay in the NBA. We talked about how he is in the NBA draft right now, going through the pre-draft process, but always felt pretty unlikely that he would stay. Right now, ESPN ranks him as the number 84 overall draft prospect. Hardly even a draftable guy by a lot of boards. So you have to think as one of the top players in the entire portal, the number 3 overall player in the portal, according to 247 Sports. Have to assume that paycheck would be pretty hefty if he decided to head back to Duke for his senior season of college basketball. But that remains up in the air right now. It continues to be reported that John Blackwell hasn't made a decision if he has first-round status, could consider remaining in the NBA. That is yet to be seen. But Duke still bring in Drew Sharnowski from Belmont, really high motor, high energy big man that will give Duke one of the best defensive front courts in college basketball with him and Patrick Gungba. Check out yesterday's show for that episode. And then Duke is also bringing back 4 of its top 6 scorers, Patrick Gungba, Dame Sarr, Caden Boozer, and Caleb Foster, along with redshirt freshman Sebastian Wilkins, and the number 1 overall 2026 high school recruiting class, headlined by 3 5-star prospects in Cameron Williams, Deron Rippey Jr., and Bryson Howard. Joaquin Boomche, the international 16-year-old, and Canadian 7-foot 4-star recruit Maxime Meyer, also a part of that class. But we have done a lot of basketball as of late. It's what's really been the focus of our shows. So today we are going to bring it over to Duke football. This show is being recorded on May 19th. Obviously a very hectic offseason for the Duke football program, and a lot of questions still very much up in the air into the program's success and potential and ceiling heading into 2026. Back a couple of months ago, all of our pods were on football pretty much, just with all the chaos going on that Duke fans all know about, most of college football fans all know about, that we are going to get into here in just a couple of minutes. But we're going to take this show, focus on the Duke football program, and really why Duke fans shouldn't count out the Duke football program heading into the 2026 campaign. Duke has been vastly successful under head coach Manny Diaz. Duke won 9 games for just the 3rd time since joining the ACC in the early 1950s. In 2024, Diaz is first with the program. Duke earned a bid to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl against Ole Miss. And then you all know what happened in 2025. Head coach Manny Diaz leads the Blue Devils to their first ACC championship since 1989, their first outright title since the early 1960s. But in the grand scheme of things, this is a Duke football team that's going to enter the 2026 season looking quite a bit different from what it thought it would. Again, Diaz has been absolutely fantastic as the head man for the Blue Devils, recruiting, bringing this Duke football team back to a national stage just in general, and keeping this team competitive atop the ACC, which it wasn't for several years before Diaz took over. And as most college football fans around the country know, as most Duke football fans certainly know, Duke went through probably the most chaotic offseason of any team in college football. And that all boils down to what happened with former star quarterback Darian Mensah. So Darian Mensah transferred to Duke by way of Tulane after the 2024 campaign. Redshirted 1 year, was a starter for Tulane for 1 year, comes over to Duke. Duke signs him to a massive NIL deal for 2 years, reported around $8 million. And Darian Mensah was absolutely fantastic in his first season in a Blue Devil uniform, leads the ACC in passing yards, leads the ACC in passing touchdowns, throws just 6 interceptions, looks like a true Heisman Trophy candidate heading into the 2026 season. And after Duke was able to take home the 2026 ACC title, really kind of put this Duke football team on the map as a contender on a national scale with the expectation that Darian Mensah would be back with the program. Again, Duke went just 7-5 in the regular season, but took down Virginia in the ACC title game, got there by a miracle of all miracles in the tiebreaker rules. But nonetheless, Duke secured a conference title for the first time in a few decades, and Darian Mensah was set to come back. So Duke enters the offseason, doesn't make the college football playoff, which was expected, but Duke enters the offseason in a really, really, really good spot. It's expecting to get Darian Mensah back. Wide receiver Cooper Barkate is expected back, and Duke is looking like it might have the best offense in the ACC heading into the 2026 season. Might be one of the scariest offenses really in college football, with Darian Mensah returning as one of the top QBs in college football. Darian Mensah publicly releases a video citing his return to Duke. He publicly announces his return to Duke for the 2026 season. And then about 3 weeks go by. A lot of the portal QBs find their new homes, and Miami struggles to find their portal replacement for Carson Beck. Out of nowhere, at around noon on the day the transfer portal entry window was set to close, we get word that Darian Mensah is considering entering the transfer portal. Previously, there was some rumors that he could enter the NFL draft or is mulling a return to Duke, but portal was never in the equation. Then all of a sudden, the Duke program began fearing. It was reported that Mensah was going to enter the portal. He ultimately did enter the portal. So Darian Mensah enters the portal in an absolute shocking turn of events with mere hours to go before the entry window was set to close. Duke, in response, files a lawsuit against Darian Mensah, which turns out to be a pivotal moment in this world of college football, in this world of NIL, and what it really means and how it's really relevant in the grand scheme of things. So Mensah signed a 2-year deal with Duke, and after his first year with the Blue Devils, he elected to hit the portal. So he violated the terms of his contract. Duke sued him for that. And then it was essentially just a long debate about how can you sue a student athlete for transferring to another school. The NCAA is very passionate about not referring to its employees or to his athletes as employees. So it was going to be very difficult for Duke to win that case against the NCAA because Darian Mensah did sign to play for the Duke football program, but at the end of the day, he's a student. So that goes on for a while. Details are released. The case eventually doesn't even get to court. Duke and Mensah settle before the case ever gets to court. And Mensah, along with Cooper Barkate, end up transferring to Miami, leaving Duke in obviously an extremely difficult spot, leaving the program in a total spiral to find his replacement. At this point, with the entry window almost completely closed, Duke had missed out on a lot of the top portal QBs as they had already found their new homes. So Duke is in a spiral, doesn't know what it's going to do. Barkate gone, Darian Mensah gone. And the program eventually lands on San Jose State transfer quarterback Walker Eget. We're going to get more into him later. But at the end of the day, Duke can still be competitive in the 2026 season. I think Manny Diaz's first year with the program really signifies that. He did it with, not the most talented team in the world. Malik Murphy, the team starting quarterback, transferred over from Texas, was a former highly talented recruit, but was fairly unproven, didn't see the field much with the Longhorns. Then Diaz wins 9 games and an appearance in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Again, just a vastly successful first year for Manny Diaz in his first year with the Blue Devils. Duke doesn't necessarily need all the talented pieces in the world to be successful. Manny Diaz has proven that he can develop a team, he can generate a team and be a consistent winner without all the talent in the world. And sure, Duke might have lesser expectations, really vastly lesser expectations than it did a couple months ago when Darian Mensah was with the program. But at the end of the day, there's a lot to still be excited about with this team, in my opinion, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. I think Duke is a team that will come into the year really with no expectations whatsoever, expected to be kind of a low middle pack team in the ACC, not expected to really make any noise at all. But it's a team I think can do something, win some games with Diaz at the helm. I think Manny Diaz has proven that in his first 2 years, really a historic first 2 years for a Duke head coach, his first 2 years with the program. I think it's very exciting. And Duke has some newcomers that I think it's worth being excited about. Obviously, there's a lot of question marks, and there's going to remain a lot of question marks, but I think there's reason to be excited about this Duke team. So we'll get into Walker Eget, Duke's new projected starting quarterback. There's other quarterbacks on the roster, such as Ari Patu, a North Alabama transfer, and Dan Mann, a redshirt sophomore. But Walker Eget, the San Jose State transfer quarterback, expected to be the team's starter. Comes out of California, wasn't a very highly touted recruit, held offers from programs such as Western Kentucky and Bryant. Walker Eget spent his entire collegiate career with San Jose State. He was the team's starter for 2 seasons. In 2025, he went for 3,047 yards to go along with 17 touchdowns in the air and 9 picks. And across his 2 seasons as a starter, goes for 5,551 yards, throws 30 touchdowns, throws 19 picks on 58.4% completion percentage. Obviously, Walker Eget, as you can see, has that big yardage ability, can make big-time plays, but obviously has that turnover problem as well, 30 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. He's a guy that I think there's a lot of volatility in the way he can play, in his ceiling, in his floor. If he's able to clean up the turnovers, has that big play ability, I think Duke can be a team that can be very fun to watch with these 2 new transfer receivers that we're going to get into in a couple seconds here. But a guy, obviously, that's fairly unproven, especially at the Power 5 level, a guy with a lot of question marks, but a guy that has the big playability, has the big arm, can make those throws. It's just if he can clean up the turnovers, that's what's going to make Duke a scary team and really get them to that next level. So we'll get into these 2 receivers that Duke has coming in that I'm very excited about. In addition to Cooper Barkate, Duke also lost Quayshawn Brown, who transferred to Virginia Tech. But one of those wide receivers is Jared Richardson, who's coming to Duke by way of Penn. Will probably be expected to replace Cooper Barkate, the wide receiver role from 2025. Barkate became Duke's first 1,000-yard receiver since Jamison Crowder in 2014. So Jared Richardson, again, has that big playability, can make contested catches, a guy that's very fun to watch, and despite playing at that Ivy League level, can make a lot of plays. So this past season, Richardson led Penn with 80 catches for 1,033 yards and 12 receiving touchdowns. He led the Ivy League in receptions and receiving scores as well. Throughout his career in college, he's gone for 193 receptions, 2,505 receiving yards, and 27 touchdowns. Again, a guy that has the potential to really play at the Power 5 level, and a fairly similar story to Barkate coming over from Cooper Barkate came over and really, really blossomed onto the scene. Jared Richardson is not the same player. Don't get me wrong, but Jared Richardson is a guy with a lot of talent and I think a lot of good things for this program. The other is Javin Nicholas. Began his college career as a preferred walk at LSU, but was primarily 190 pounds. In 2025, with the 49ers, went for 60 catches for 7 touchdowns. But again, a guy with the ability to in the open field, and a guy that I think has the potential to be going to be a consistent that line kind of guy. But a 1-2 punch a receiver with Javin Nicholas and Jared Richardson, 2 transfers, I think is one of the more underrated in the ACC. These guys are coming from obviously mid-major programs with a lot to prove, but kind of that trio of guys from below the power level in Walker Eget, Jared Nicholas, who I think will decide a lot for this team's ceiling, just because there's so much volatility at this Power 5 level. If all these guys are playing at their ceilings, it's fair to say Duke can win 8-9 games and be competitive atop the ACC with Nate Shepherd at running back, one of the best running backs in the ACC heading into 2026. So the ceilings from both guys, or at least consistent stellar play from these guys, can really elevate the Duke offense with a guy like Shepherd who's already proven. But if these guys cannot hit their ceilings, are fairly inconsistent, fairly underwhelming, that obviously puts Duke in an extremely difficult position to succeed specifically on the offensive side of the ball. There's a lot of confusion, a lot to be determined with this Duke team, and a lot that is just unclear right now. Again, Duke will have very, very high ceiling, maybe not the highest ceiling, but a high ceiling, but a very, very low floor. And obviously only time will tell what that is. But that is going to do it for us here today at the Duke Devils Insider Podcast. Just like every day, we thank you so much for tuning into the show. Make sure to check us out at si.com/college/Duke, as well as wherever you get your podcast every single day, whether that be Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever that may be. Once again, my name is Hugh Strain, your daily host as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI, and I'll see you tomorrow.